Hey guys, hey. It's Whiskey Girl coming at you from the Writer's Cove, keeping it real in here, but I'll make sure that's covered up so it could be on YouTube without being flagged. But shout out to Shamar for allowing me to show up authentically into this place so that we can have coffee with whiskey. This is the January Coffee with Whiskey recap, and for those of you who don't know, I am Whiskey Girl. I am a local poet and event show host, producer, and mental health advocate. I do a lot of virtual events surrounding emotional support, supporting each other in the arts during this time. And one of the events that we have had since before the pandemic has been the Coffee with Whiskey. It is started out as a poetry workshop and evolved into just a safe space for people to come connect and talk about different topics surrounding mental wellness and maintaining our own mental wellness. I do this every second and fourth Saturday of the month at 10 a.m. on Instagram Live. It's actually on my private events page, so you can follow me there at Whiskey in the City, or the best place for the meat and the recaps of what we're saying is to come here on the website for the space to check out the condensed version that hops right into the journaling prompt so you can get that fix of whiskey that you need. Getting into this, when it comes to the beginning of this year for 2021, some of the things that I've had to focus on are a no-brainer, but I kind of wanted to share my thoughts with you because I think when it comes to things that are no-brainers, we kind of take them for granted and we don't actively think about them or implement some of these things that we already know. One of those things would be for the first part of January, I talked about letting go. And letting go is a concept we all understand. We all understand that there's a grieving process, that there's a paradigm shift, that there are certain things we do not get to take with us, whether it is something grief or a loss of death, a grief or a loss of autonomy, which a lot of us are feeling. I imagine those who have been sick during this time have been grieving, what it is to be well, or grieving, the loss of autonomy of their body. So there's a lot of emotions floating around in this time of COVID, in this time of the pandemic, and really looking into therapy and how we hold on to these griefs and these traumas if we don't process them out correctly. I started to look into what it is to let go. At the beginning of each year, we always make, a lot of us, I should say, not all of us are into it, and even I changed it to my 2021 goals instead of resolutions because sometimes there's a lot of pressure in that. But all that to say is that a lot of us have resolutions or promises we make to ourselves in the new year. And one thing that I just became cognizant of is that as I am making time and plans for bringing in the new things that I want to do, what does it look like being more ritualistic about the things that I need to let go? So really, for me, what that looked like was taking all of my goals, writing them down, and then doing the opposite, looking at what the opposite of the goal is, which is what I had been welcoming into my life, and being really intentional about letting that go. I will share some examples for you, and this will be pretty much the journaling prompts. It's pretty much something that you can personalize to yourself. And it's pretty clear cut because we all know what letting go is, so I don't need to explain it too much. The goals that I'm willing to share with you, that is, I have a lot of layers and I don't want to get too personal with it, but I will say one of my goals for this year is to maximize in spaces where I would once minimize. And obviously, the opposite of that was me really contemplating, what did I minimize and why? What were certain things about myself? Playing down my intelligence in certain circles, being submissive to different people because I'm picking up on their emotions, when really, just because I'm picking up on something in empathy, does not mean that I have to acquiesce or give in to what I'm picking up on. So really I had to examine the places where I was minimizing myself and resolve to let that go. One of the concepts I learned about just in reading and talking to my therapist is giving yourself permission. And one of the things that really helps me in my therapy appointment and helps me to feel validated is when my therapist gives me permission. And an example of that is just, even if it's not a direct, like, I am giving you permission, but in one of our first counseling sessions, he validated all the mental work I had been doing, and he gave me permission to rest. Something about hearing that from another person was powerful to me, and I started really looking into this concept of what we subconsciously hold in and hold on to because we're not giving ourselves permission to let it go. So when it comes to these journaling prompts or this exercise or strategy, I recommend a ritualistic side to it. I recommend writing it down and burning it or whatever you're into. I am really weird about the rituals, and I know that people with different backgrounds, religious upbringing, it can be troublesome navigating that, but I do think there is value in the physical, tangible process of letting something go. For me, it was really meditating on each of these and trying to get to, okay, well, this is the opposite of the thing that I need to let go so that I can embrace this new thing in the new year. Another goal I had for 2021 is not seeking so much validation from others about my lifestyle and personal choices. And that's really just a personal goal for me because I realized that I naturally sort of had been experiencing a lot of invalidating situations, and it came to the point where why am I seeking so much comfort and validation and advice from other people when I'm a grown woman and I know what I'm doing and I know what I feel good about. So when it comes really to that one, it is the opposite of, if I want to embrace independence, if I want to embrace trusting myself, then I need to let go of the idea that I am untrustworthy. And part of the action that has gone into that's been kind of a layered goal. Part of the action has gone into that is really trusting myself to be a consistent person, making promises to myself, and holding myself accountable when I'm unable to do the things that I promised myself I would do, that I promised my children I would do, that I promised anyone else to do. So it's kind of like for me to not seek validation from other people. I do have to let go of the idea that I need their advice, but I also had to let go of the inconsistent behavior that I was showing up with so that I could validate myself and I could validate the positive behavior. I can validate my own consistency, and that allows me to trust myself more so that I don't feel like I have to go to anyone else for any sort of guidance when it comes to specific and very personal life decisions. I will say I'm not advocating for no accountability. Of course we need sounding boards, of course we need advice, but for me, it was a little bit like I can't move unless I have the advice or validation from someone else. So it's really exploring what it is to embrace that independence of decision making and decisiveness, and letting go of the idea that I need anyone's help or advice when it comes to certain decisions that I make. Have the difficult conversations. Having the difficult conversations is definitely a goal for 2021. And when I examine the thing that I have to let go, is for me it was the concept that life would be easy, that vulnerability would be this huge breakthrough for all parties involved, and everyone would get what they want, and it'd be rah 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 and magic stars and look at all this harmony. That is not what comes with vulnerability, and I really wanted to get real about what it is to live authentically and what it is to set boundaries with people, and it means that you have to have the difficult conversations. And in that, I had to let go of the notion that vulnerability would be easy. And even the word difficult is that you still have to have it. I had to let go of the notion that I can avoid these things. I had to go of the notion that avoiding difficult conversations would lead to a good turnout, because it never had, which is why it ended up on my goals list for something that I wanted to do. Because although the conversations are difficult, although they are rough patches and could consider, they could possibly end friendships, they could possibly stir up situations and conflict, but conflict is not something to run away from. You really have to run directly into conflict if you want to propel through it. If you want to rise above it, then you have to get to the heart of it, and that means diving into it. So, and finally, just another goal, another resolution for 2021 is to emerge. It is time, and a lot of people are emerging. A lot of people, it's a beautiful thing. The collateral beauty of all the pain of what's going on in this pandemic is that a lot of people are really cracking themselves open to examine their lives and examine what it means to live a full life. And I myself have thought more about what it is to emerge, and that it's time to emerge. And for me, the letting go process has been the idea that I have to hide who I am from anyone. And really letting go of that in 2020 is what is helping me to branch out and pop out in 2021. So that was the first lesson. That was the first chat that we did. It was a very cool discussion, and I believe it's on my IGTV video, but you do not need that because you are watching the recap. And the recap is basically examine all of your goals for 2021. You don't have to call them resolutions if you feel like you never meet them and you disappoint yourself. But I really want us to look at what renewal looks like. And the beginning of the year is always a good time when everyone's on the shift of the new year, new me stuff. And that's okay. It's okay to take that time to recalibrate and to examine how you want to grow. And it's also good to think of that as a grain of salt. It's a good time for a lot of people to recalibrate, restart, and reset some goals. But you may have an anniversary date that is more meaningful to you, that works for you. So this works really for anything. Yeah. So that is the recap for the letting go. And I want to get into the other recap. So the other recap, oh, yipes. So the other recap, we did, and I don't want to be controversial here, but we did a really cool live on staying woke in 2021. And what I mean by staying woke and using the word woke, I don't mean, I mean mentally present. And for people of color, for Black people specifically, that usually means something more in depth. But I really want to talk about what staying woke means. It means staying in presence of mind and being very aware of the things that are happening in this country, that are happening to our people, and that are happening in the mental health spectrum. Staying woke means we are in the age of information. So how are you guarding your mental? Really, and I'll be brief here, and I'll give maybe a couple of food for thought items that can work as journaling prompts. But I will say that staying woke has been the wave because we have QAnon. We have people with all sorts of alternative beliefs and offshoots. And I don't want to knock what anybody believes, but I do think that in the age of information, we do not do our research enough. And when it comes to research, it's research twofold. It's the research of yourself to know what you stand by and what you believe and what is unshakable in your core, as well as what other people believe. So it's kind of like what does staying woke mean to you? I'm sorry, guys, I lost my train of thought. I'm recording videos after a long day of podcasting and writing a video. So I don't want to lose track of my thought. So you guys help me remain present of mind and let me gather myself for a second. We are in the age of information, and I will say when it comes to research, that's what I was saying. When it comes to research, there's inner research of ourselves and staying connected to our core beliefs. And then there's the research that comes with absorbing knowledge, that comes with learning. And all of those things are valuable, but we have to make sure that we learn with intention, and we have to be cognizant of when it's time to learn and when it's time to chill. Sometimes we crave information, or we crave theories that kind of, I guess, support what we already believe, instead of really opening up that curiosity to other, not just belief systems, but other truths and real things that are out there. Facts that are out there. We usually fall in line with the thing that caters most to where we are and our belief system, and it caters to our emotion, but it doesn't cater to the actual facts of the situation. So the idea of staying woke is the practice of being cerebral along with our emotions. We have a lot of emotions about things. I myself get very emotional when it comes to instances of white supremacy, when it comes to instances of racism, of social injustice. But there are situations where I have to think more cerebrally and strategically about how to navigate in these systems, as well as just curbing my anger and being able to process information in a fruitful way that makes me present in situations. The anger will make you want to lash out. It will make you want to go down to the protest and be in the trenches fighting folks. But really, staying woke is the psychological aspect of it. Staying woke is the presence of mind not to react. It's the difference between being reactionary and being responsive. So when I say stay woke, it means basically staying on top of the importance of psychology and mental wellness. I think these things and concepts fall by the wayside because we all like to think that we are mentally well, but mental wellness is something that takes maintenance. So staying woke also includes staying on top of your self-care. It includes making sure that in the midst of a pandemic, like you see I have my makeup on, in the midst of a pandemic, that we're still trying, that we're still showing up as human, that we're still believing in ourselves as human, showing compassion to others and ourselves as human. That's part of staying woke. And we talked about this as part of the Coffee with Whiskey in January, because I think it's just a good mantra to have the full year, because in 2020 we were throwing a lot of wrenches. And disassociation is a thing. It is a coping mechanism, and it is a survival tactic. So totally is a thing when shit starts hitting the fan, that we lose it a little bit, and we can kind of dissociate and go into our own mindsets. But staying woke means being present. I don't like the news either. It's not a happy, feel good, happy-go-lucky thing, especially after 2020. It's just been like nonstop. But I don't watch the news, but I have the CNN app because I realize I have to stay in touch with what's going on in the world. So staying woke is being grounded, right? So with the chaos that was 2020, I want to make sure that we go into 2021 prepared for the wrenches that might be thrown in our way. There is no way you can prepare for unpredictability other than to mentally prepare yourself. So staying woke is just the mental fortitude. I was reading a book my therapist recommended. It calls it psychological fortitude. Having the psychological fortitude to maintain every day and deal with the wrenches that are thrown your way is really something we'll have to stay on top of as the pandemic progresses, as the world progresses, as it has been. As this turmoil is coming up to the surface, how are you present and how are you staying mentally sane? And these are all good concepts for me because I'm in the middle of a pandemic as a single mother. So I always want to make sure that I have a calm about me. I'm taking care of my mental health so that they can see that, I'm good over here. And goes hand in hand with emotional regulation and, training your nervous system, and learning what it is to be present in your mind. So I guess with that, I don't really want to give journaling prompts, but I do want to give food for thought items that you can think about. And there are prompts of sorts, but with journaling in general, it's just a good idea to write down your perceptions of your daily experiences. We all have our own inner worlds, and we all have our unique experiences that make up who we are. And sometimes we are in situations where we perceive things differently than other people, because sometimes we see things to our trauma tinted glasses, if you will. So I think it's good to getting into journaling, to writing down just your perceptions of your experiences, your daily experiences, and that's something. And the extension of that is to write down your experiences and the emotions attached to them. And that's really how you connect to what you're thinking and feeling on a daily basis, so that you can be in touch with yourself. There's a lot of stimulation, a lot of distraction out there. It's not as easy to be in touch with yourself and your emotions as you would think, especially in this day and age where the pain of the pandemic and the despair of the situation we're in. Netflix is killing it right now. There is plenty for us to stream and distract ourselves, but when you really sit with self, that's when you can connect and be present with yourself and your atmosphere, and make intuitive decisions on how to move and react instead of reacting within your emotions and triggers and chaos. So journaling is really about writing down your perceptions of your daily experiences. And even when it comes to news items, everything that's going on with the social unrest, and now with the new administration, and things are not going as planned there either. I would say that write down your opinions of the daily news items outside of discussing it with friends, where it's kind of an opposing opinion or two people just kind of sharing opinions and expressing their similar views. Write it down for yourself. Commune with yourself about what's happening in the world. What do you think and believe? And once you reinforce those things and say those things in your mind, that's when you start to marry the parts of yourself. Like, okay, this is what I stand for. This is what I believe. And if you get roped into those conversations about, political unrest or what's happening in the world, you know what you believe. And you can decide from there whether you want to engage in conversation with it or whether you're grounded and rooted with who you are. And yes, I always preach about how we just live in a very divisive and invalidating society. So the best way to stay woke, to stay mentally present, is to validate yourself. And the best gateway into that is journaling. Of course, this is Coffee with Whiskey, and it's a mental health chat and journaling workshop. So of course, this is what I am promoting. That we take our notebooks out, that we take our apps out. Maybe you do a voice command, and I tell people this every day, that your thoughts onto paper is the writing process. So all of this newfangled technology we have, where you can just spit out your voice or whatever onto your phone, that absolutely counts. All of this stuff counts. So find ways to connect to yourself, write stuff down. And notice what people are talking about, notice what's going on in the world, and it's okay to examine and get curious about your own deep-seated feelings about it, even if it's something controversial. If it's something controversial as like murder, then you need to probably see somebody. Everybody needs to see somebody. I just want to make it clear that I'm all about people's freedom, but not murder. Anyway, stay woke in 2021, and remember to let things go. Whatever you are trying to embrace this year, it is not a bad idea to look back on the opposite of that thing and let that go. and be ritualistic about it. Even if you write it down in the journal, you will be surprised when you go back into your journals and see all of the things that you set intentions for that have come to fruition. And it sounds so hippie and out there and happy-go-lucky, but it's really just simple. It's really that we are in an environment of technology and overstimulation, and the reconnection to self is very difficult, but we are finding ways to stay woke, to stay motivated. And the best thing, especially Black people of color, can do is to realize and pay attention to what's happening around us, and to pay attention to psychology and mental wellness. The thought that we already have our mental wellness together because we had a good day, or because we stuff down anxiety and don't diagnose ourselves or look into certain issues, that does not mean that we are well. So stay woke in 2021 and really ask yourself, am I well? And find out, if so, if the answer is no, why aren't you well? And what can you do to make the steps toward wellness? I encourage everybody, if you cannot afford a therapist, to find an emotional support system that is validating. And in the future, I'll be coming up with a couple of quick workshop videos to talk about how you can clean up your social media so that it's a safe space for your mental wellness. And health is the gateway until you can get to some therapy, because I know access to care is a huge issue, and I don't want to minimize that in any way. So thank you all for checking in, for watching this. This has been Coffee with Whiskey January recap. You can catch me on my events page at Whiskey in the City. And if you want to promote my writing and my work, I do mental health tidbits in the full spectrum of woman and what it is, juggling my life, trying to be, all woman during a pandemic while raising 2 daughters. And you can support my work and find out more behind the scenes content such as that, and the writing that is as a result of my healing journey. All of that is on patreon.com/whiskeygirldc. If you sign up for as low as $3 a month, you get access to the mental health blogs and articles and reposts and good reads that I'm always posting in there, because I just love the journey toward growth and toward mental wellness. So thank you all for joining me for this segment of Coffee with Whiskey. I will be back with the February recaps very, very soon. Shout out to Shamar at The Space, Free Art for All. Thanks for checking me out. Peace.